So I'm going to copy this walnut and cherry cutting board and make a walnut and maple version, much smaller. I am going to rush this. I tried to do it in one day. It didn't work out, so you'll see a lot of mistakes. And this isn't how I would normally do it, but it worked out. So first, I always wrap my table. Like I said, I use this table for everything, so it's steel on top. I use it to weld on whatever else. So I always like to put paper down first when I'm doing stuff with wood. Say hi to Brent. My bandsaw likes to wear that hat. If it doesn't wear that hat, it acts up, so I would recommend putting a bandsaw on your hat if it's not working appropriately. So I made these a while back off a guy I saw on YouTube. It's basically 2 pieces of plywood, nailed together, and then I put the PVC across the top because it's a lot easier to clean the glue off. And then I cut the holes in it so you can clamp down to it. This is the easiest way to keep stuff flat for me right now in my current shop, and I can put it up in the rafters when I'm not using it, so it kind of stays out of the way. So I had this little piece of walnut and little piece of maple left over, so I decided to make this out of this. This cutting board is going to be smaller than normally when I make them. You don't really have to plane it, but I do want flat edges when I glue together, so they don't have to be equal sizes for this cutting board. It is nice if you can make 2 cutting boards the same size because you have a lot less waste, but they don't have to be planed to equal thicknesses. You just need to get 2 flat surfaces to glue together. Right here you'll see mistake number 1. It's getting colder out. I need to clean the rollers in my planer. They're not pushing the board through very well, so I'm having to pull it. So after I got this done, I took it apart and cleaned them. That helped a lot. So next I'm going to cut all the ends of the boards, turn them into end grain. Normally I would cut this into strips, glue it together, and then turn it end grain on the next step. Since this board's a lot smaller, I think I can do it all in one step. So first things first, I'm going to measure, of course, put a stop block in so that they're all the same size, and I'm going to just cut that green edge off of there that they've painted at the wood store. So when I make larger cutting boards, I like them to be about 2 inches thick, and that's where I set the block up for this. So you're going to notice these cutting boards are really small and really thick. At the end, I cut them in half with a bandsaw, so they were still small, but they weren't nearly as thick. I just left that step out accidentally. Brent told me the camera wasn't on right here, so I had to check real quick. I did get that trend mask. I like it quite a bit. Keeps the dust out, keeps my head cool. It gets pretty warm here in Arizona, especially working outside. So here we're just going to glue it up. I'm going to glue it up into 4 sections, 2 sections of maple and 2 sections of walnut, and then glue those pieces together so it can be a little bit wider. Something that I think is important when you're doing this, because I don't have a drum sander, so you need to keep the pieces really flat when you're doing this design, and it'll save you a lot of sanding, save you a lot of other things. I don't know what other things. I just said that because I didn't know what to say. But anyway, you want to keep the pieces really flat, so you need to have a top and a bottom rail that you can clamp to. That's why I like these things I have on the table there, because you can set a board across the top and you can clamp down to it. So here is something you shouldn't do. This is about an hour after I glued this up, maybe an hour and a half. Like I said, I was trying to get this done in one day. So this mistake cost me a little bit later. Just going to remove the glue here. This glue is still pretty wet out on top, so I went and got a wet rag. And I always use a really dull Chinese chisel. I don't worry about it being sharp because it ends up gouging the wood, and the dull one just scrapes the glue off just fine. So I kind of have a chisel that's just for that. I got this little gadget to help make sure my saw blades were square. I'm not quite sure I like it yet. I could not seem to get it to land right on 90 degrees. It would go from 90.1 to 899. So eventually I just called it good. And I'll mess with it another day. This is how I square my sled. There's probably a better way. There's definitely better sleds, but this one's decent. I just need to get a straight edge on those blocks that I made so that I can glue them together in basically two cutting boards, one maple and one walnut. And here we go. We're just going to see how these blocks match up best. Then we're going to glue them together. And this is glue up number 2. It's probably maybe 2 hours after that first glue up. I don't know that I would recommend doing it. Actually, I would not recommend doing it this way. You'll see in a minute it doesn't work out for me. So I ended up having to clamp everything both directions because it did shift a little bit when I clamped it together. The walnut did, the maple didn't, and that caused me some problems down the road. You'll also notice that I didn't put blocks across the top of them this time to keep them flat, which for that glue up it didn't really affect it much, but you'll see a little down the road when I don't, it does mess it up. So we're gonna get the clamps off. And this next part's super easy. We're just going to throw that almost on the ground. So just some two-sided sticky tape here. You're going to stick the two together. You want to have good clean surfaces. This is where it'd be great to have a drum sander because then I'd run them through and have really nice flat pieces. But I just try to keep them flat when I clamp them up, and this seems to work for me. As long as you're careful when you clamp your glue ups, then this does work. But if you get one that's a little high, a little low, you end up with some trouble. So here's cut number 1. Make sure they're good and stuck together. Get your bandsaw set up right. This is super critical that you don't get any twist in that blade so it doesn't slant one way or to the other, or the pieces won't line up. And then you can just pass it through the blade any old way you want at this point. I like to have all my guides set as close as I can. And then you just cut it in weird curves. Right here is where my first piece of walnut separated after this. When I took them apart, you can kind of see it right there before I pull it off the stack. And ended up having to re-glue it. So anyway, leave it together, wait for the glue to dry before you move on to the next step. So after that, you're just going to get the two-sided sticky tape off and you're going to alternate your pieces. As long as you didn't twist that bandsaw blade any weird in any way, each piece should just line up. Well, this is where I made my second mistake. You're going to see I clamp them together and I don't put anything across the tops of them to keep them flat. So this does hurt me in my next cut just a little bit.
Same price, you just get.
So you get those pieces stacked together, tape them together just like the other ones, and then make your cuts right here. You're basically going to cross cut all your old cuts and wave it around. So just take the tape off, lay them out every other one like you did the last time, glue them together. This is another time you should put some pieces across the top to hold them flat. I did not. So after this, I cleaned the glue off, cut them a little mostly square, and then took them down to Woodworker Source and they sanded them flat for me. It did cost me 20 bucks, but it saved me hours. Once they were sanded flat, I did run them back through the table saw to get the edges square. And then I built this little jig to help me cut juice grooves. It's actually been really helpful. I used to mess these up all the time. So I decided here I was just going to cut a 45 around the bottom of them, so instead of handles, so that you could pick it up off the counter. These cutting boards are really small. They're barely bigger than my hand, and I probably should have clamped these down in a better way. I don't recommend holding on to stuff with your hand while you're cutting it. It's a good way to lose fingers. This is the first time I've used this little router. I just got it. I like it, actually. It works really well. I'd say it's as good as my plug-in mini Bosch router. So by now you've noticed that I have 4 cutting boards and not 2. I did saw them in half in my bandsaw. I decided they were way too thick for cutting boards that size. And here we go. So now I have 4. So I just started with some 180 because I already had them rough sanded down the road and worked my way up to 400. I do water pop in between every sand. I feel like I get a better finish that way and it goes a lot faster. So normally I would set these in a tub of food grade mineral oil and just pour oil over them. You know, I'm just screwing around right here. So there you go. That's what they look like when they're all done. That one's walnut and maple. And they come out pretty nice. Good luck.